ANC was expected to release the nominations list for the 80-member National Executive Committee, and that is the main decision-making body of the ANC in between conferences. That's the structure that we often refer to as the NEC, and so these are the people that were meant to be announced today, but that has been delayed. Chief Luvhuwani Matsila is the secretary of the ANC's Electoral Committee. He's in studio to explain the delay first and foremost. So this announcement was intended for today, but there's been a delay. Please explain.
Yes, indeed, we had hinted that we would announce the results for the nominations of the additional 200 members. Remember, in the ballot, there must be 200. That 200 comes from the up to 80 nominees in the provinces. Then we consolidate them into one list. That work is quite intensive and very involving in terms of numbers that we're punching. Up to 10,000 names are being processed as we speak to come to the 200. And in there has to be the issue of the gender balance. In the top 200, at least 100 or so should be female in terms of the ANC constitution. So we're going to meet this afternoon as the Electoral Committee and look at how far we are and then announce a new date. It's certainly going to be before Friday this week.
All right. So you're talking about the top 200 names out of the 10,000 that you are processing at the moment. We certainly do understand why there is now a delay. So out of that 200, that list will then be whittled down to 80 ultimately. Is that?
So in terms of the ANC constitution, you present that top 200 names before the conference for voting by secret ballot, so that you then arrive at the 80. So that's the pool from which the ANC members and the delegates in particular would then vote, and then we scale it down to the 80 members.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's go back though to the members that have already been announced, the top 6 nominations.
Yes.
As a way of an update, do you intend announcing or updating on this top 6 that has been nominated? Because you obviously would have had people like Lindiwe Sisulu, David Mabuza, expressing discomfort that they think that they are being muscled out here. Is that going to be updated, or is the 6 that has been announced the list from which we as members of the media are going to constantly be speaking about all the way into the conference floor?
Yes, there are 16 nominees for the top 6 positions remain as they are as we speak. So the people should not expect any changes unless we process some disputes, between now and the conference. But the deadline for disputes has now passed. We will only look at disputes that will arise out of the announcement this week and see if that can result in any significant difference. But as we speak, the names that are there. There are no new names to be expected.
That's the top 6?
That's right.
And so if there is any further talk from those who feel that they have been disenfranchised, that is water under the bridge now. They simply have to wait for perhaps nominations from the conference floor. Is that what you're saying? Yeah,
that's what we're saying, except that there's a letter to request some information from the team of Comrade Lindiwe Sisulu. Will look at that this afternoon and then see if there is information to provide. And then there is a dispute launched, I think it's Andrew Baloyi, on behalf of the Deputy President of the ANC, Comrade Didi Mabuza. We will look at that. The first thing to establish is whether Mr. Baloyi has got mandate by the Deputy President and whether he is formally appointed as a campaign manager and perhaps, what is his job description and what is his duration of the contract. Wow. What does he really do and how much has he paid for the work that he does? Because, you see, in terms of the letter sent to all those campaigning the Electoral Committee was clear that you need to inform us who is your campaign manager, how is the campaign run, and how much is being spent on the campaign, and what are the sources of funds for particular campaigns. So if somebody just appears and claims to be a campaign manager without being verified, we can't just accept that there's a campaign manager unless somebody who has appointed such a person divulges all the information related to the campaign and the status of a campaign manager. So we'll start from there before we deal with what is contained in a letter.
Very, very interesting. Let's then get an update on who has declared thus far as to the monies that are being used for this campaign, and how much have they used, or how much is at their disposal, and where do these funds come from? Who has declared from these 6 names that we now know of?
It's not 6 names. Remember, it's 16 names, because in some cases you have got top 3 for each of the 6 positions. So if you had all top 3, you would have 18 names. Now, because in the president position and the one of the deputy Secretary General is only 2 candidates, and we've explained when we were here last time why we arrived at the 2 candidates. So, you know, I think more than half of those have now come forward with the information. We have already indicated that, for instance, the National Chairperson, Comrade Gwede, has said to us he's not using any money to campaign. He's using his own funds to do whatever needs to be done. You have got Comrade Lamula, who has come forward. Comrade David Masonda has come forward. The president of the ANC, Comrade Cyril Ramaphosa, has also come forward. Comrade Bejani has also, declared. But you see, our approach is not to tell you how much is being used. It's for us to monitor the expenditure so that we are able to determine that what is being spent is in terms of what is allowed in the rules. There are items that are allowed for expenditure if you're going to have a venue to hire for campaigning, if you're going to travel a bit for campaigning, and accommodation and minimum catering. And we expressly say in the rules, no alcohol should be bought as part of the campaigns.
All right. Final question on this element of the declaration of campaign funds. The 2 names that stand out at the moment, if we take the 2 top positions, President, Deputy President. So you're saying President Ramaphosa, we know the other contender is former Health Minister Dr. Zweli Mkhize. Has he declared?
No, we haven't received his declaration as yet, but we are in contact with him to ask for information. So remember, like we said, most of our comrades were waiting to accept the nomination and then start to campaign, and then thereafter finish us with details. So
what about Paul Mashatile, Deputy President?
Also not yet. We did speak to him last week to remind him, and he says he's considering doing that. So we don't think there's a crisis yet in terms of those.
Is there a deadline though that they are working on?
Well, at any time when you use funds, you should declare. So sometimes if you are not using funds and there are no funds that you have, maybe you don't have to give us the information. So anytime the way people think that now they are utilizing funds and they've got records ready, they should declare.
Final question. The 2 provinces that have not gone to conference, or that have not concluded a conference in order for them to go as a legitimate province into conference, it's the Free State and the Western Cape. How does that complicate the work of the Electoral Committee?
It doesn't complicate the work of the Electoral Committee at all. You know, the ANC Constitution governs all these processes around the elections. And if you check Rule 5 of the ANC Constitution, it talks about rights of members, that every member has a right to participate in elections or being elected or appointed into a committee, a commission, or a structure within the ANC. And when you go further into Rule 10, it starts to describe the character of the National Conference. And it says that the National Conference is the highest ruling and controlling body of the ANC. And then it should be comprised of 90% of voting delegates in terms of that rule should be those who are branch delegates. And if you look at that, it means that any branch with members in good standing, that means they've got paid up membership to be able to participate, and also in good standing also means that you are not suspended as a member of the ANC.
Yeah.
So all those branches are eligible to participate in conference through nominating delegates, utilizing the branch general meetings, which in terms of another rule, Rule 23, they must satisfy a quorum of 50+1 when they sit. Then their nomination of a delegate and nomination of a nominee for certain positions becomes valid at that point in time.
All right.
So now what that means is that the branches in Free State and Western Cape who are in good standing are accommodated in the conference, and they have gone to BGMs. As we speak, we have got 263 delegates from Western Cape and 252 from the Free State.
Okay.
But remember, not having a PEC does not mean that you are in bad shape, because there are provincial task teams that are appointed.
Understood.
With same powers as PECs.
Final question.
And the RTTs as well.
Yes.
In the regions, yes.
Final question to you, and it's a bit of a spanner in the works. We are expecting tomorrow that the panel that has been investigating Phala Phala to hand over their report to Parliament. It's not been explained by Parliament yet as to what the next steps are going to be. But should that report have serious implications for the President, again I ask the question, how's that going to complicate your work of these top 6 nominees?
The most important issue is that we use the rules to vet those that have been nominated and come to a decision whether they qualify or not at any point in time, whether there is a report that comes out. And in terms of that, for you not to be, the first rule says that if you are criminally charged or charged with a serious crime, and a serious crime is the one that could result in a prison sentence of more than 6 months, and you can't be allowed. And now the charge part is the charge in the court of law. The charge in the court of law. So tomorrow, we then need to not only tomorrow, all the time, we check, is there a charge in the court of law against any of these comrades? Then we can disallow them. And then there's the issue if you get suspended pending the outcome of a criminal case or a disciplinary case. And then there's the issue if you have been found guilty of misconduct or had your membership...
I'm out of time. Okay. I'm out of time, Chief Matsila, but what you are saying to me is that a parliamentary process does not count here because it's not a charge in a court of law.
That's the rules approved by the NEC of the ANC.
Well, there you have it. Whatever Parliament says, in a few days from tomorrow onwards, should that committee decide that the President has a case to answer in relation to Phala Phala, that will not count, or that will not disqualify him, or certainly, according to what Chief Matsila here is telling us.